On today's episode, we're working on the jet boat. Hey, welcome back to Fabbin Adventures, guys. On today's episode, we're going to do a walk around on my jet boat that I picked up last year, and I'm going to talk about some of the maintenance items I got to take care of, some stuff that happened last year. I got to do some changes, so let's get into it. So I picked this jet boat up last year, about early July or something like that. Paid about 13 grand for it, and it worked good for a little bit, and then we had some issues here with this coupler, this bearing coupler down here for the main drive shaft. It spun off. It broke free on us on the river one time. We were taking water in, something fierce. So I re-welded that, but I must have re-welded it not straight, so then we could never get the engine alignment, and we were killing the rubber couplers all the time. The other thing I found at the end of the season, all of a sudden I had a major oil leak. So I'm gonna pull this motor, find the oil leak, fix it, and at the same time while the motor's out, I'm going to address that coupler issue. I'll probably have to recut my welds, get that thing aligned perfectly straight, and then re-weld it. That way it should bring the engine up. When I welded that triangle on there, that bearing holder on there, the shaft, if you want to call the shaft level, I actually put the bearing coupler about 2 degrees out by the looks of it. So I need to cut the welds, tilt it back so it's level, and then re-weld it. And that should bring my engine up. The biggest problem I'm having right now is the way this coupler is tilted down. I need to tilt the engine down and I can't. I run out of room. The front of my oil pan's touching the bottom of the boat. So I think if I bring that coupler back up to where it's level, that should bring my motor back up, and that should solve our issue there. There's a few other things I want to make changes on. I would like to redo this firewall idea, make these seats come out individually. You know, there's a few other things that I would like to take care of. Otherwise, the boat track's good, works really good. I had trouble with pulling water into the bottom of the boat last year, and then the flywheel flings it around, flings it into the starter, gets the solenoid on the starter corroded, and then it won't start for you. That's a bit of a pain in the butt. So I want to address that issue also. So powered by Suzuki, you can see staying true to my channel. My jet boat is Suzuki powered also. It's about a 1.3 liter engine. I believe it's supposed to be putting out about 95 horsepower, something like that. What I'd really like to have is 150 horsepower in this boat. I think it would really wake it up and it'd be a lot more fun. It's pretty fun as it is, but 50 more horsepower, who doesn't want 50 more horsepower? That would be a great addition, and that possibly may happen in the future. So towards the end of the season last year, it seemed to have developed a leak. Now I'm not sure if it's one of the Teflon bolts. Maybe it's got a leak and it's bringing water into the bottom of the boat or what, but I'm gonna figure out where that water's coming in. So when I pull this motor to look for the oil leak, I'm gonna take it down to the river. I'm gonna drop the boat in the river with no motor and stuff in it, and just see if I can find where that water's possibly coming in, and I'll address that issue, and then that'll help with the flinging of the water around, getting into the starter and corroding that. So last year when we were ripping on the water, it was fairly early in the ownership of this boat, and that bearing coupler broke off. It took on water, and the flywheel of this motor sits really close to the bottom of the boat, and it was winging water around. And the air filter is just an open element cone type filter, and it sucked so much water in that it actually made the oil milky, and I had to do 3 or 4, maybe even 5 oil changes to get that milky water out of there. And we got all the problems fixed and whatnot, but I haven't built an air box yet. So the plan is to be building a nice air box and pulling air from under the front of the cowl. That way there's no possibility of pulling water into that motor ever again. So there's another Fabbin episode that's coming up. So one of the other things I noticed last year was when you run across the hood, typically when you beach the boat, you jump over the windshield and you run across the hood and you tie your boat up or whatever. But when you run across, this hood here buckles a little bit. So I want to put some bracing across it to stiffen it up. And then I'm gonna throw some of this hydro turf on there just to give you a little traction. It does get a little slippery when you're whipping across there. So this jet boat here, it runs a Sea-Doo type of pump. It's actually a 155 millimeter Bombardier pump on it. And it actually works pretty darn good. It propels this jet boat along pretty good. I can't quite remember what I can do. About 48 kilometers an hour, 50 kilometers an hour, maybe with it, something like that. And the reverse bucket on it is not really great. I would like to maybe get an aftermarket reverse bucket because it doesn't have a whole lot of control in reverse. So that's possibly something I'll be doing in the future on this jet boat. One of the other nice, neat features that this boat has is it has adjustable trim, and it's got nice notches in here to set your trim level at. It's really handy for when you load the boat down. It's nice to be able to adjust your trim. When you got all your camping gear in here and stuff, it's going to run differently than when it's just you by yourself. So an adjustable trim lever, that's the ticket. So these jet pumps, they're actually equipped with a Venturi type, I don't know what you want to call it, a suction system. There's a couple holes right here and right there that I can plug some hoses into and put them down to the bottom of the boat. And as the jet wash is going out the nozzle, it's creating a Venturi type suction, and that should help keep water out of the bottom of the boat too. That's another thing I'm going to do. So one of the other things I really don't care for is the foot throttle. It's not, when you get into really rough water, you're on and off the throttle, and I don't really like it. And honestly, I think throttle and forward reverse bucket combination lever would really be the ticket. When you're in forward, you got all your throttle, and then you just click into reverse and you've got the same amount of throttle. It makes really quick. If you really need to hit her in reverse and give her some throttle, it's just a click of the one lever. You don't have to be flipping a reverse lever and then giving it some throttle or none of that stuff. That's one thing I would like to do. They're really expensive, those controls. But maybe possibly just a hand throttle. I might install just a hand throttle instead of the foot throttle. So we'll look into that and see how that goes. Here's kind of a neat feature of this boat. It actually has a tilt steer, but it tilts to the side almost like as if so the passenger can run it. Or maybe it's to help you get in and out of the boat. I'm not sure really what the point is to the tilt steer, but it's a pretty neat feature. So another thing I want to do on this jet boat too is build a little bit of storage. It really has no storage. Got a little bit on top of that fuel tank, a little bit on top of this fuel tank, and a little bit of room beside the seats. And I know it's a little jet boat, it's only 11 feet long, but I think I could put in just some little cubby holes like we did on the other jet boat, just to store ropes and whatever other stuff. Maybe I'll look at putting a net underneath the front to store your life jackets and stuff like that too. So if you see underneath here, this box is actually a heater. It's a pretty neat addition on them cold mornings when you're heading out hunting moose or elk or whatever, to be able to throw a little heat on down under your feet. It comes up underneath the dash and actually helps warm yourself up. I got to do a little bit of work to it. I got to be able to regulate the water flow through the whole motor because it still doesn't quite get really warm. So one of the things that I'm probably going to end up fabbing on this boat is like a low windshield. Them cool mornings or when it's really rainy out, it would be nice to have just a little bit of protection from the rain, from the wind. So I'm thinking I'm just going to build up a frame that comes up a little more towards the peak here. It's going to have some oval glass windows in it down the other side, and it's going to be removable, quickly removable, just probably maybe with some wing nuts or something like that, and that windshield will come off, and that way my travel tarp can still go on. It actually snaps over top of this lip and covers up the cockpit area. So that's a possibility that I'll be doing in the future on this boat, hopefully this year. And so stick around and watch for that video to come out. So one of the things that annoys me about this boat is if you need to do any work under here, under the dash, it's hard to get under without taking the seats out. If you need to change a belt or something on the front of this motor, these seats got to come out, and they're connected together. and it's a real pain in the butt. The trim lever is mounted to the same seat plate. So is your reverse nozzle lever is attached to the same seat plate. So if you wanted to remove this, you've got cables and controls and all that stuff that you gotta disconnect, and it's a pain in the butt. So what my plan to do is like what we did on the other boat, is make each seat removable individually, and I think that'll just make things so much easier to work on. So there's another Fabbin episode that I'll be doing on this jet boat. So here you can see this boat came with a 1/2 inch thick UHMW. For those of you that don't know what that's for, that is to protect the bottom of the hull from hitting rocks and gravel and whatnot. And you can hit a fairly stout rock and not damage the hull with this stuff on. It's definitely a must when you're running fairly rocky rivers. Another neat feature of this boat is it comes with a set of real sweet Corbeau seats, and they are super comfortable seats to have in this little jet boat to run along. You can sit in here all day and stay quite comfortable. So I definitely got a bunch of things I want to do to this boat, and I want to get them done early in the season so that I can enjoy them all summer long. There's a couple guys that want to get together on Saturday. Today's Wednesday. So I got a lot of work to do to pull that motor out, find the water leak, cut that bearing support off, and re-weld that straight. Take her down to the river, find the water leak, fix that. So if you guys are enjoying these videos, go ahead, please subscribe, share, like these videos, hit the bell to be notified, give me a thumbs up. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @Fabbin_adventures. Go ahead, look in the description below to a link to my store where you can pick up shirts and hoodies and help support the channel a little bit. I'm also nearing 4,000 subscribers. I'd really like to thank you guys for your support and continued support. And we'll catch you guys next Friday.